Hello, and welcome to the Simply Business interview series. I'm your host, John Jennings. I believe that most business owners are working way too hard for much too little. And one of our issues is that we overcomplexify things. I believe that the answers are almost always within us or within our reach. I like to say I'm a simple man with simple ideas. So welcome to Simply Business. And today I'm joined by Danny Knott, who's the president of Elevator Systems Incorporated. He's also the founder. Been in business for around 7 years or so. Danny, thank you for joining us today. And we just take a moment to kick us off with a brief background about who you are and what you do.
Okay, like I say, my name's Danny. I'm the president of Elevator Solutions. I started back in June of 2016. I was in the elevator trade for several years up to that point and worked in several areas and learned the trade and decided that, I wanted to try to give it a go on my own. So I took the leap and here we are today. So.
Excellent. So, you and I, around that same time period, got that itch to start our business. So tell me a little more about what inspired you to take that leap, that spark that encouraged you to jump off that entrepreneurial cliff, if you will.
Well, I will say that I've always had that in the back of my mind that I wanted to do something on my own. I didn't really have a vehicle for that or knew what that was going to be. My dad was always self-employed. Most of my family was always self-employed, but Dad never wanted me getting the family business just because of the nature of it. So he implored me to go on to school. So I went to tech school, got into, trade. Started in automation and electrical and troubleshooting PLCs. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't really fulfilling. So I was always kind of looking for that next thing. I got into elevators, really kind of wasn't interested in it in the beginning. When I first heard about it, I was like, it doesn't even sound interesting. Long story short, I took the leap. Something told me to give it a shot. And really, it was the industry that really kind of was for me. So I just got really interested in it and took off in it. And then, the opportunity come up to go on my own, and I was hit the point in my life and I decided to take the jump. So.
It's awesome. And I hear that so often. I'm the same way. If you'd have gone back 30 years and asked John 30 years ago, would he think I would be doing this? No way. I mean, I just never would have thought I'd be doing what I was doing. So that's cool how we get pulled and drawn into ways that we don't expect. So what's been that biggest surprise, that kind of unexpected aspect of being a business owner? What anything really stick out as something you didn't expect?
I don't know about the biggest surprise. There's several surprises along the way for sure. I guess the biggest surprise is that I've gotten to this point. Really didn't know if I would last. And in the last year or so, and maybe with COVID, really had my eyes open quite a bit, things that have happened. So, to really learn the business from a more, I was good at the trade, but I wasn't good at running a business. I thought I was. I knew how to run jobs. I can get jobs come in on time. I was good at that. But as far as looking at the business as an overview, I really dove into that in the last year. That's really changed my thinking. So,
wow. So give us an example of something in your thinking that's changed.
I think, like from my perspective, being in a trade, which I think a lot of people are in a trade of some sort or type of work, and they're good at it, so they decide to go on their own. So they're good at that type of work. So best way I explain it is when we have bigger jobs, we put a margin on that job, and usually the jobs come in good. But once you start adding overhead, that affects it. And then making sure your margins are where they need to be, and make sure you're charging what you need to charge. And really, I had to kind of regroup and I've got a really good team right now. And I always heard people talk about getting a good team and a good culture. And I didn't really know I knew what it meant, but I didn't know what it meant.
Mm-hmm.
I had to kind of between last year and now, I've really seen how much it can help propel you when you got the right people on the bus and the right seats, so you hear all that stuff in these business books, but you don't
Yeah.
until you feel it. You're like, okay, I know what that is now. So I've been lucky in that aspect.
Culture is so critical, and it takes more than luck. So what do you think?
Mhm.
What do you think that secret ingredient is that you've found to get people that fit your culture?
Well, I think last year I had some people that fit the culture, and I didn't know it, and I had a couple people that were negative in that culture. And I came to an impasse where a couple people I had to part ways with that were high level people, and the other people just stepped up to the plate like you wouldn't believe. And I could see it from day one because they were kind of the other people were like, well, if they get to get by with that, then I'm not going to put forth the effort. And then once that opened up, they really just kind of like, all right, we got it. Don't worry about it. We're glad you got rid of those people. And we'll take care of it. We got your back. So that, and it happened overnight. So
Isn't it amazing when you have those right people on the bus? How it
yeah,
changes things like that. So I
yeah,
call those ugly baby moments. Those moments where our business is our baby, and every now
yeah,
and then you hit that moment where you realize, oh, something, this is kind of ugly. What's going on here? And you have to face reality, and that's really
yeah.
tough. Can you think of another example of something where you've had to face that moment and how you identified it?
Uh, um, I mean, that was one of last year. There was really a lot last year. Of course, we have vehicles on the road. We had one of our crews was in a vehicle accident. That was a defining moment when you're like, okay, I've got people's lives in my hands in our vehicles, and it really brings the home
Mhm.
that aspect of it. Like, okay, this is real, So luckily there was no fatalities or anything, but it was a pretty bad accident that could have gone bad. That really makes you think too. So that was another moment that really kind of, and everything for me really happened last year. I thought I had things figured out, and then the world kind of finds a way to kind of teach you
Doesn't it
that you
though?
don't. Yeah. So
That's really good. It sounds like you are very have a strong compassion for your team, and that's certainly a sign of a great leader that is that concerned about it. And I've been in those situations where you lose somebody, either injury or fatality, and a good leader feels that pain as much as anybody. So
yeah,
appreciate that very much. Appreciate you sharing that. Um,
yeah.
so how do you handle the whole work-life balance equation? I always kind of laugh at that question a little bit because it's never balanced like 50-50. But
Right.
as a business owner, what are some of the techniques, habits, and things that you've developed to better manage your work-life balance?
I mean, I would think the first thing is, of course, I grew up around business owners, so I've seen both sides. I've seen ones that's been fully engrossed in it and really just can't get away from it. So when I started, my goal was is to not. I didn't want to be, totally bogged down about it. I didn't want my wife bogged down in the business, and I told her early on, I said, I don't want you heavily involved, because once you're involved, I'm involved, we're involved on the weekends. Of course, when you start out, you got to do what you got to do.
Right.
So I really try to separate that. And then when I get home, I kind of try to act the way I did when I was an employee. When I get home, if I need to answer a phone call or an email, I'll do it. But I try to just, when I'm done for the day, I'm done. The weekends, I try to do what I need to do. And there's instances where you just have to get involved, but I've
Mhm.
always tried to strive for that because the last thing I wanted was burnout.
Yeah.
It's hard enough to run a business, so.
Yeah. That's it's very wise, and that's a hard thing to do. Set those boundaries. Does your team know what to expect from that standpoint of when you're off limits and when they can call?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think most of them, if there's an emergency or something, they know they can call. Usually the only problem I have is I have, every once in a while I have a customer call me after hours, but that's just part of the game. The guys pretty well know, I guess once you get that expectation set and this is how we do it, and everybody just knows, so, but they also know they can reach out to me if they need something. So,
Yeah. So how big is your team now?
we're up to, I think, 9 employees, and we just hired another one that's going to start here in a couple weeks.
Okay.
So we're growing,
That gets to be a challenging point because you can't be everywhere when
yeah.
you're the owner and 10 guys are out there representing you. So what's that like for those business owners out there that might be listening that might only have 2 or 3 employees right now and think, gosh, I can't imagine 10. What would you say?
I mean, you just got to take it one step at a time, because I remember when it was just me and I was Sunday afternoon is when I paid bills. There's nothing more demoralizing than paying bills on a Sunday afternoon and having to get up and go to work on Monday. So, for me, the first step was I found someone part-time to take care of that for me that was retired. And so I got that off my plate. And you just got to take those little things a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
And like I say, I hired a salesperson a couple years ago, and that helped. But we had to kind of back up from that. And I recently hired another salesperson. So kind of getting back at that takes some of that off my plate to help with the growth. So you just got to divvy up a little at a time. You can't get rid of it all at once.
Yeah.
But you always got to be looking for that opportunity for somebody to pick up some of those pieces for you.
Yeah. I love the paying bills on Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon. That was me too. I hated it. And that was the first thing I got my wife to take that off me initially, just because I did not want to deal with it. It stressed me out. And like I said, then you have to go back to work the next day. Yeah. That's some of the challenges of a startup, right? So give us a little glimpse into the coming year. What do you have in store?
Like I say, I mean, like I mentioned, that last year was, kind of a rough year, and I've had a lot of, epiphanies, and I think a lot of business owners can relate, when you're working hard and, you want to, I've always been on the payroll. I always tell anybody that's in business, make sure you're on the payroll. Don't fall in the trap of like, well, I'll pay myself down the road, because it won't happen. But I've really been working on trying to get profitability is my main focus right now, to make sure I get as much team members as I can and manage the cash as a holistic picture. And I really delved into that in the last year, really still educating myself on that. I've learned so much. So don't think you can't learn. You've got to get out there. There's things you don't know and you're like, wow, I wish I'd have known this. It's simple, but so read books. I've been reading books and really working on that, working on the levers of the business, really trying to pull those levers. So
what's your favorite business book?
Just recently, I mean, I've got to say this, the last one I read is Profit First.
Oh yeah. Good book.
And really it just helped me kind of get a system to make sure I'm telling the money where to go,
Yeah.
And there's several books before that. E-Myth was a great book.
That should be a foundation for every founder. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. So really the E-Myth is what got me into the other one, because I think they might have mentioned it in E-Myth slightly. And then, so that was the most recent one, and I implemented it about August. So, and that's really helped me kind of get my focus to make sure you're telling the dollars where to go.
That's awesome. So, you give some great advice for business owners. That profit first model is certainly one. You talked about paying yourself. You talked about getting those things off your plate that stress you. Any other sage words of wisdom you'd give for a younger business owners that's not as far along the trail as
I mean, I think if I look back, I think just like I said earlier, and what's really kind of hit me, and a lot of guys do it. You might be good in your field, and you might be good at getting projects done, and all the technical nuts and bolts, and really learn the business side of it is what I would tell anybody. I mean, when I was in, I was like, it's not that hard. You do a job, you put a little bit of markup on, you make money at the end of the day. But there's so much more to it. So you might be good at whatever trade you're doing. Educate yourself on being a business to run a business. It's different, so, and that's what I'm learning this year is trying to be more overlooking running the business from above. So
Well, that's awesome. Danny, I thank you so much for participating in this. I think you've given some great insight. I know our listeners are going to appreciate that so much. So I thank you for sharing part of your entrepreneurial journey. And to our listeners and people viewing this, I look forward to seeing you in a future episode, and I hope you got some great wisdom out of this today. So thanks for joining us.